To use the Head Plus with the slide module, you're going to need the link cable which comes with the Head Plus. Attach the cables on the ports where it says link. You can start the Edelkrone app, and after it scans all the available devices around, it gives you the options that you can use the system as. This option where it shows the slide module and the Head Plus together is the one I would like to tell you all about. So I go ahead and press. Now it's on the calibration screen. It's going to ask me a few questions, simple ones. First, it asks me if I'm operating the camera on ground or on a tripod. In this case, it's on ground. Next, it asks me to straighten the camera directly to the front. I can use my hands to make the adjustment. I can just look from the sides and control if it's nicely straight. Or I can use this control here, and as you see, I can control it, make it look as straight as possible, and then I can press done. Since I have the focus module attached, it also asks me about which lens I am using on my camera. If your lens is not in the list, you can go to Lens Community and you can actually type in the specs of your lens, the brand, the millimeters, the focal length, etc. So there are many lenses which are already pre-mapped and shared to the Lens Community by our current Edelkrone users. So usually you would be finding your lens already in the list. Press the download icon. It gets downloaded to your app, and then you can just select the lens and it calibrates to its infinity and its macro points, and it's ready to start using. Alternately, if you didn't have the lens in the Lens Community, it means that you need to map your lens, and there is a separate video telling all about how to map your lens. Make sure you watch that video. So let's continue and start using our system. Make sure the Slider Plus is unlocked. So when you look at the screen, you see the top section is all about manual controls. This one is for manual panning and tilting. So when you use it, as you see, I can control the pan and tilt remotely. Still, I can always do the same thing manually by hand. They all work the same. Other adjustment is on the other side. This is for slide controls. As you see, when I drag it sideways, I can start smooth slides on either side. And again, I can still go ahead and do the same by manually sliding the system to the sides. They still work the same. Another adjustment is the focus, which is on the center. As you see, when you drag it up and down, you get the focus control happening in real time. That, however, cannot be done manually. It should always be controlled from the app. This top part helps you get your camera into any pose. Once you get it into the pose as you like, what you can do is you can record that whole position, that panning, tilting angle, the slide position, the focus amount. You can all record that information into any of those 6 slots. You just press and hold. When it lights up, it means that that current position is recorded. I can go ahead and just move the whole system to a complete new position and complete new focusing distance, and then I can record this new position to the next slot by pressing and holding. So I recorded 2 positions instantly. Once I press those position buttons, as you see, the whole system just goes to that position from its current position. You can record all the way up to 6 poses, and you can transition in between any of 2. We have the speed adjustment and the smoothness adjustment. When you lower the speed, what happens is, everything happens slower. So, for example, if I recall the pose 2, as you see, it's happening slower, and I can see from this loading animation the amount of motion completed so far. And from here, I can see the time countdown, and I can know how much time I'm left to finish the action. If I want to take the system to a pose rather quickly, I can just double tap. When I do that, regardless of this speed adjustment, the system uses its maximum speed to take its position. This smoothness adjustment just smooths out the beginnings and the endings of your action. So if I move it all the way to the smoothest, so when I recall the pose, as you see, it takes longer to get to its maximum speed, and then it starts decreasing its speed rather quickly, early, and then smoothly stops. One very important feature is the loop feature. You can make the system go back and forth in any of those poses infinitely. To do that, you just use 2 of your fingers and just select both of them. In that case, you will see both of them are highlighted, and it starts going back and forth between them infinitely. Right now it's going to the pose 1. After it completes, now it starts to move to the second pose. It's very important to notice that when you are pressing to any of those key poses, the current speed and smoothness adjustment are taken into account. So always make sure you have already set the desired speed and smoothness before pressing any of the key poses. You can delete your key pose information by pressing the cross on its edge, and by pressing sure, you can delete it. And by using this camera sign on the edge, you can just turn on the camera and take a reference picture. So this helps you label which key pose is representing which position of the camera or which target is aiming at. Everything I have explained so far is the key pose mode. We have a second mode which is called the target mode, and it works slightly differently. When you switch to the target mode, you will notice that the labels on those 6 slots have changed. Now I have 3 target slots and 3 slider position slots. Slider position slots works just like a key pose. What I mean is, you just place your slider to any position and then press and hold. Now what's recorded is just the slide position. This information, which is about panning, tilting and focusing, is not recorded, just the slide position. I move it to another position and record it as the second slide position. So as you see, when I switch back to the previous one, nothing happens on the pan and tilt side, just the slide position. These target slots are for live target tracking. What I mean is, once you teach the Head Plus a stationary target, it can still keep looking at that target even while it's sliding. Since I have the laser module, teaching the Head Plus a stationary target is very fast and simple. I just press and hold on the target slot and it tells me mark the target with laser. I just take my laser pointer right at the center of my target. Right now my camera is not looking at the target, and that's completely fine. What I should be looking at is the laser pointer itself. Once it's placed correctly, I just press the done button in the target slot. And what happened is my panning, tilting and focusing corrected itself, and now I'm looking directly at my target. Once the target is activated, when I start a slide, as you see, the camera keeps the target stationary in the frame, controls the focus, pan and tilt automatically. So let's teach a second target to the Head Plus very quickly. I just press and hold. I aim my laser on the target and then press done. Now I have 2 targets. What I can do is I just press the target and switch in between them in real time. The speed adjustment and the smoothness adjustment also works just the same for target switches. So let's have a quick target transition. And great thing is, target transitions work while you are sliding. So let's start a slide. And while we're sliding, as you see, I'm tracking the second target and I press target 1. And as you see, a live switching is going on while slide is continuing. If for some reason your target is not sharp enough while it's tracking its focus, just go to where it has the least focus and then use this focus adjustment to make it look sharper. But make sure when you do this adjustment, your target is already highlighted with the red frame, which means it's active. Then you can make the focus adjustment and it should keep the target better in focus. If the results you get are not still satisfying, you may need to reload your lens, which can be done from the change lens button. Even if that doesn't work, you may have to remap your lens. Maybe a mistake was made when you are mapping the lens, so remapping and reteaching the lens to the system may be required. Another thing you can do while the target is active is actually reframing the target to someplace else in your frame. Right now, as you see, the place where I placed my laser pointer stays right at the center of my frame. But with the shift target, I can move that position to someplace else in my frame. Again, this can only be done from this adjustment. I cannot do this manually. I should be using this adjustment. And since I've moved my target to the other side of the frame, as you see, when I start my slide, it stays there this time. So what this means is, after I teach my target, I can always take it to another place in my frame by the help of the shift target. The shift target amount is recorded, so when I go back to my target, again, it comes back with the amount of shift target which I just adjusted. Looping works just the same as the key pose mode. What I do is I press both of my slide positions at the same time, so it enters into a loop mode, goes back and forth infinitely. However, looping between 2 targets is not possible. When you don't have the laser module, you can still teach a stationary target to the Head Plus rather simply. To do that, first, make sure your camera is aiming on the target. At this point, focusing is not important. Just make sure the point you want to track is right at the center of your frame. Then press and hold on the target button. It tells you slide the camera away because I will have to show the same target from a second position. I'll just slide my camera away. Now the notification changed. Now it tells me aim on the same target. What I do is, again, I'm positioning the same targeting point right at the center of my frame. Again, focusing is not important. I press done. What happens is, now the camera calculated the actual position of the target by looking at it 2 separate positions. So everything else works just the same as you have the laser module. When you don't have the focus module, everything works just the same and your Head Plus can still track subjects automatically panning and tilting. But again, in that case, you will have to be using an automatic focus camera or using a rather large depth of field and manage the focus manually by yourself.